Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram is on Capitol Hill tonight.
A grave warning from Capitol Hill.
This is going to get worse as the week goes on, as time goes on.
Vice President Vance huddling with Senate Republicans, saying troops will get paid this week.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to pay everybody because we've been handed a very bad hand by the Democrats.
But Democrats think Vance is the wrong guy, meeting with the wrong party. They want President Trump.
He has spent 1 hour negotiating with Democrats on this issue in the Oval Office. 1 hour. How much time has he spent on his ballroom?
House Speaker Mike Johnson says the president already met with top Democratic leaders before the shutdown. But that was a 1 hour meeting where he basically said, here's our bill, take it or leave it. Yeah. That's not a negotiation.
Yeah. Schumer has shown no indication whatsoever that he's changed his posture from that day. So talking with him and trying to negotiate is a waste of time.
Air traffic controllers exasperated as they work without pay.
The pressure is real. We have people trying to keep these airplanes safe, now having to worry about how they're going to pay bills.
25 states are suing the Trump administration to compel the release of emergency food aid, which expires Saturday.
100% unequivocally, USDA does not have the $9.2 billion that it would require.
Chef Jose Andres says he will feed federal workers. One Democrat disturbed it's come to this.
They're actually feeding government workers that haven't been paid yet. I mean, that's the absurdity of this.
Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia ripped House GOP leaders today. Greene said the party, quote, wasted its majority by keeping the House out for 5 weeks. Brett.
Chad Pergram live on Capitol Hill. Chad, thank you. 85% of your fellow Americans say the recent surge of political violence is worsening as both sides trade blame. The situation was the subject of a Senate hearing today on Capitol Hill. Correspondent David Spunt shows us tonight from Washington.
In a fractured nation's capital, paralyzed by a government shutdown, both sides of the aisle came together to agree political violence in the United States needs to be stopped.
It is motivated by a distinct and fanatical ideology.
It is the fault of both parties in differing degrees.
Both parties also playing the blame game.
Chuck Schumer said about Supreme Court justices the following: I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Chuck Schumer, using self-interrogation, said I was wrong. I've never seen the President of the United States who has spoken about punching people in the face, who has said a lot of violent rhetoric, has never given that type of self-interrogation.
Senators heard from Metro D.C. police officer Daniel Hodges, seen here fighting to breathe during the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021.
I was beaten, bloodied, crushed, with my eye gouged and my skull smashed with my own baton.
And the former acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf.
The difference between 2020 and now, however, is that the Trump administration knows what to expect.
Democrats have criticized the Trump White House's use of law enforcement on city streets. The hearing comes just a day after we learned a Minnesota man was recently arrested for threatening the life of Attorney General Pam Bondi in a TikTok post. Charlie! Other examples of political violence this year alone: Charlie Kirk's assassination, an arson inside the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, the murder of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman, and consistent protester attacks on federal officers across the country.
Earlier this month, a pardoned January 6 rioter was separately arrested for threatening to kill House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. Brett.
David, thank you.
Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance heading to the Hill as the government shutdown drags on. He's set to have lunch with Republican lawmakers. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram. He's always there, and he has more. Hi, Chad.
Dana, good morning. Some Republicans are looking for direction from the administration on the shutdown. Others are dug in, unwilling to budge from the GOP position. However, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska chastised her colleagues. Murkowski says lawmakers are not acting with urgency to end the shutdown.
I was talking with one Capitol Hill police officer, and he says, every day I go home and my wife says, so did they open it up? Are we going to be paid? And he said, and I tell her, nope, no progress today.
There are still no formal talks between the sides to resolve the shutdown. 1.4 million federal workers are off the job. Nearly half of those are working without a paycheck.
I think it's pretty crazy. Obviously, if you're like just a dude that happens to work for the government trying to provide for his kids and not getting paid, that's going to be pretty stressful. I could only imagine. So.
The head of the union representing most federal employees is now demanding a quick end to the shutdown. It's a break in the Democratic coalition on the shutdown.
Of course we'll listen to them. We'll take them into consideration. I mean, the Republicans should have listened to them, too, when they also said, please stop arbitrarily firing our employees. Please stop arbitrarily firing VA employees. Please don't get rid of the Department of Education. Now Republicans also don't care about government employees. Where the hell have they been for the last 10 months?
There's growing concern about SNAP benefits expiring on Saturday. The Democrats are suing to compel the Trump administration to release some SNAP money. The end of food aid, coupled with no paychecks, could compel action to end the shutdown. Dana?
All right, Chad Pergram, thank you so much. With that, we bring in the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, coming from a meeting with Vice President Vance and Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill. Majority Leader Thune, thank you very much for being here. I'd like to start. I want to get your reflections on what happened at that meeting, at the lunch. But Chad raises important questions there. Should it be the president that is directly involved in helping to move this ball forward, and why is that not happening?
Well, good afternoon, Martha. And the president would do that after they open up the government. I talked to him last night, and he's willing to sit down next week with the Democrats in his office to talk about a path forward on dealing with the unaffordability and unsustainability of Obamacare, but not while they hold the government hostage. Mm-hmm. So they vote to open up the government. The president sits down with them. I don't know what more do they want. That seems to me to be giving them exactly what they're asking for, is a chance to negotiate on these things. The thing that they want right now is they think that it's all about political leverage. And they are afraid of their far left base, the people who marched here during the No Kings rally, groups like MoveOn.org and Indivisible, who are calling the shots. They are the tail wagging the dog. The Democrat leadership is petrified of these groups. And so they are not moving at all right now. But we have made it very clear that we, Speaker and I and others, are willing to have discussions about health care and other issues, as is the President of the United States. Open up the government and we can have that conversation.
So it's interesting. You said you spoke to the president last night. He's in the middle of all of these travels, obviously, in Japan this morning, heading to huge discussions with President Xi in China. So all of that is very important to the economy. I'm curious, though, what he said to you, because he always says, you know, I make deals. I've made deals all my life. So did he say to you, Leader Thune, and he's praised you on your handling of many things, did he say, just hold firm? Do not do anything. Do not start doing these piecemeal bills in order to get certain things reopened. What was his advice to you, Leader?
Well, I don't always characterize my conversations with the president, Martha, except to say that, yes, I mean, I think he believes that, you know, you can't take a hostage like federal employees, like the federal government, and like SNAP benefits for literally 40 million people in this country, and use that to try and get all these ancillary things, these policy things that they're trying to do. You know, $1.5 trillion in new spending, you know, free healthcare benefits for people who are non-citizens in this country. Those are things on the Democrat wish list. He's saying open up the government with a clean, nonpartisan CR that's passed in the House over a month ago now, sitting at the desk in the Senate. We could pick it up and pass it today. All we need is 5 more Democrats, send it to the White House, it gets signed into law, the government reopens, the president sits down, and we talk about these health care issues the Democrats want to negotiate on. That's basically what he has put forward. That's what we've been putting forward for a long time. And it seems to be, at some point, the Democrats have to take yes for an answer.
I want to play this from Senator Chris Coons, and we played earlier from Catherine Clark, Congresswoman Catherine Clark, and there's a familiar theme that we hear here. Watch this.
The consequences of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill in terms of throwing millions of Americans off of health care in the coming years is something that Democrats consider a crisis. Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage, and although a very unpleasant tool to use, it's gotten us focused on what we have to do to change direction on health care.
Your thoughts?
Well, and, again, and it does. It echoes what was said last week by Catherine Clark, you just mentioned, who basically said, this is going to be really painful and unpleasant for families across this country, but it's our key point of leverage. They're looking at this like it's some sort of political game, and where where there are winners and losers of the political game, whereas we look at this as real impacts on real families and people in this country.
Well, it does.
And it becomes more real, and the consequences become more real over time. I mean, what they just said, they said the quiet part out loud. Yeah. These people are looking at this as a political game, Martha, and it's not.
Let me play this for you. Talk about real people and the impact. This is Sherry Jablonski. She's a SNAP benefits recipient. She's a widow. She's retired, and her income comes from Social Security and pension from her husband. And here's what she had to say on this. Watch.
I usually have my mother over for Thanksgiving, and I don't even know how I'm going to do that. There's no way I can afford a turkey and to cook extra stuff here. There's no way I can do it. You really didn't think this through very well. You really didn't. You all get paid. We don't.
I mean, I want to get your reaction to her larger thought. Obviously, we are headed towards Thanksgiving. A lot of people do rely on some of these funds because they're in, different financial situations like she is. She's a widow. At the end there, though, she said something that I brought up with you before, and it's that thing that I think nags at a lot of people. How come Congress, which is shut down, is not getting paid, is getting paid, while other people are not?
Yeah. Well, my staff isn't getting paid, nor is anybody here who works in the Capitol, and I sent a letter to dispersing. I'm not getting paid either, Martha, just to set the record straight.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is, people like her are the people who get hurt by this. And on Friday, federal employees missed a check. Monday, yesterday, you had air traffic controllers who are missing their check. You got these SNAP recipients out there. The 40 million or so families are going to be impacted by this by the weekend. This is just insanity. And the Democrats have got to come to their senses and realize that while they may view this as leverage and look at a ledger of who's winning, who's losing in the political world, this is the real world we're talking about here. And in the real world, people are hurting. And this is going to be a painful, painful time. And it can be simply remedied today by getting 5 courageous Democrats with a backbone to join us and vote in the Senate today to open up the government. The president would sign that bill into law.
Let me ask you about that, because just very quickly, that number 5 has been the number since the beginning. And I know you must be having back channel discussions with several of these Senate Democrats. Is it your sense that you are near a roll point here?
Well, I think there are people who are sincerely want to get this figured out on the Democrat side.
That they're ready? They're about ready?
There are, and of course the challenge is the Democrat leadership could care less about this, and Chuck Schumer, they're in a box. I mean, like I said, they are running scared of the far left in this country right now, and that characterizes a whole bunch of Senate Democrats too. But there are some rank and file Democrats, I believe, and we have had, as you said, back channel conversations that have been going on for some time that have intensified here of late, and hopefully that will lead to a breakthrough. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take rank and file Democrats who organically come to the conclusion that this doesn't make sense for them, politically long-term for them either. I don't think this is a winning issue when you shut the government down.
I know that you have always wanted things to happen in regular order, to deal with budget issues in a timely manner, to resolve all of this. And, I think that is something that people really need to think about, because there's no reason for us to come to these cliff-hanging CR things where we just keep pushing it, kicking the can down the road over and over and over again on how we run the biggest, federal government, most powerful country in the world. But we'll continue that another day. Majority Leader Thune, thank you very much.
Thanks, Martha.
Good to see you, sir.
You too.
Meanwhile, the Senate is about to try a 13th vote to pass the Republican funding bill that would finally ensure federal workers get paid and needy Americans can put food back on their tables for their families. House Republicans passed it more than a month ago. You've heard it, a clean, continuing resolution, just so they can continue to talk about things, but keep the government open. All the add-ins that Democrats have wanted to put in, they can talk about health care. Look, these are important topics. They'll get to that. Just open the government so the people who need the health care can have the money to pay for it. But the shutdown drags on. Now in day, woof, look at that, 28. Vice President J.D. Vance is about to head to Capitol Hill for lunch with Senate Republicans after this 13th vote. The shutdown has hundreds of thousands of workers furloughed. Even more are working without pay. By the end of the week, the military could miss its first check, full paycheck there. They've already missed and had to live with a partial. The biggest federal worker union is now asking Democrats to stop holding out for an extension of Obamacare tax credits and end this thing. Senator Elizabeth Warren.
I think this is a righteous fight for health care affordability for all Americans. And I want all federal employees to get paid. And the way we will do that is to get the government open. But it's going to take a negotiation with the Republicans.
40 million people could get affected by the SNAP benefits.
Yes, they
could. Are you concerned about that?
I am deeply concerned about that. And I am also concerned that the President of the United States is willing to use children who are hungry as negotiating leverage.
Listen to that rhetoric. She's so concerned that she and her fellow Democrats won't vote to reopen it. They are the holdouts, 5 votes short still. And she's rich, by the way. She'll have to try to convince us that she cares. You heard SNAP benefits there mentioned. That federal food aid is set to end this weekend for more than 40 to 42 million Americans. And while Senator Warren blames President Trump, one opinion piece says this, quote, Democrats are entirely to blame for the coming food stamp cuts, end of quote. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat, breaking ranks yet again with his people, calling on his fellow Democrats to think of those suffering and choose principle over political party. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Chad.
Harris, good morning. The Senate has never rejected the same issue so many times and expect the same today. Just right now, the Senate has started a 13th vote on the motion to proceed to break a filibuster to get onto the bill. Now, the government remains closed. GOP senators will talk strategy today for the shutdown with Vice President Vance, but Democrats contend that lawmakers are meeting with the wrong person. They believe President Trump should negotiate with Democrats.
The president's overseas. As far as I can tell, he has spent 1 hour negotiating with Democrats on this issue in the Oval Office. 1 hour. How much time has he spent on his ballroom? I can almost guarantee you he has spent more than an hour talking about that. He should be talking about this with us.
Now, food assistance for 1 in 8 Americans, known as SNAP, expires on Saturday. Republicans believe November 1st is a pressure point to solve the shutdown, especially since federal workers are still not receiving a paycheck.
I think this is the biggest pressure point that we've seen in, 28 days or whatever. So sooner or later they'll come to their senses and vote for the American people, but that's yet to be seen.
But Democrats are not ready to vote to reopen the government. They believe the White House can free up funds for SNAP. Democrats still demand money to block spiking health care premiums.
We're more than just making a point. We are making sure a program is available. What we're doing here is not about making a point. It's not about a political score.
Now, for the second time in 2 days, Senate Chaplain Barry Black used the Senate's opening prayer to ask for divine intervention to end the shutdown. Harris?
Amen to that. Chad, thank you.
But let's go to senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill for the latest on what's going on. Hi, Chad.
Martha, good afternoon. Well, as you say, Vice President Vance met with Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill today. The GOP is maintaining its course with the shutdown. Vance says the administration is trying to keep as much of the government open as possible. Republicans warn of a deepening shutdown. Here is the Vice President.
Will the troops get paid on Friday? Yes. We believe that we can continue to pay the troops on Friday. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to pay everybody because we've been handed a very bad hand by the Democrats. This is one of the reasons why you've seen some layoffs in the federal workforce. We do think that we can continue paying the troops, at least for now. But we've got food stamp benefits that are set to run out in a week. We're trying to keep as much open as possible. We just need the Democrats to actually help us out.
But nothing will shake loose until or if President Trump gets involved. Democrats say the president, not the vice president, should be engaged, and he should talk to Democrats, not Republicans. President Trump met for an hour with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in late September. There's been no negotiation since. House Speaker Mike Johnson defended the president. But that was a one-hour meeting where he basically said, here's our bill, take it or leave it. Yeah. That's not a negotiation. Yeah. Why, after 28 days, should there not be a negotiation?
Because Schumer has shown no indication whatsoever that he's changed his posture from that day. So talking with him and trying to negotiate is a waste of time.
Now, the Senate voted again today for a record 13th time to block the GOP funding bill. Also today, more than 24 attorneys general and governors sued the Trump administration. They want to compel the Department of Agriculture to use $6 billion in contingency funds for emergency food aid. Martha?
Okay, Chad, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.